This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of
enough. You can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price that you can get Truefire All Access for.
One of the headline things with the new Helix Stadium is that it's going to, some point after launch, be able to do this Proxy thing, which is their version, their project name, their whatever you want to call it, code name, for profiling or capture. Now in this video I kind of wanted to ask, is this really a big deal for Helix users, and I guess also Fractal users? Because to my mind, if it was such a big deal, then I think we'd have seen more of this sort of thing, which I'm about to show you here, which is I've got a capture Fender Pro Reverb from 1965. I believe Rob Harris has used this on actual stages around the world a little bit. So that's the clean. But it's in the loop of an HX Stomp, and what it means is that I've actually still got my normal kind of tones available here.
The key.
That's a bit rude. D. D minor.
That is my kind of challenge, I guess, to myself as well, because I'm someone who has been saying, like, I think the next flagships are going to need to do this for people to care about them, even though I have access to these bits and pieces. So whether it's Tone X1 or Nanocortex, for whatever reason, and it's not just because I get paid to make a video with Fractal every week, and it's not just because like I use HX Stomp all the time or Helix native, I don't gravitate towards modeling and capture. So is it as big a deal as we make it out to be? And if you haven't already integrated a Tone X1 or Nanocortex with your HX Stomp, Helix, whatever, or a Velton GP5 or, you know, a dime head NAM player, is it a big deal for you either? I guess is my question. So the first reason that I think I wouldn't be doing this ordinarily is because integrating it with the HX Stomp, I put it in the loop of the HX Stomp, which does introduce extra latency of about a millisecond-ish. Now, I don't think that's particularly detectable, but in my head, it's just one of those things. I don't really tend to think that it's the optimal way to run stuff. The second thing for me is that I have less gear than, you know, some of the key players within the capture profiling space to make meaningful captures of anyway. So some of the things that I might have captured in the past would be, in some cases, digital stuff. In this case here, the 1965 Pro Reverb capture, I think legitimately sounds really pretty good. And if I had loads of gear like that I wanted to capture, then maybe my opinion on this would be kind of different, especially if I was able to monetize that. I'm sure my opinion would be different. The next kind of thing for me, though, is more about just like how I build tones in general. And one of the things that I dislike in a way about a profile or a capture is that it removes some element of like tweakability. So for instance, I can go back to any preset that I made from, you know, years ago, and I'm often really impressed with it. That is not quite the case when I go back and try some captures, which is odd because obviously when I went to make the captures at some point, I presumably was impressed with those tones, but the more I go back to them, the more I feel like something's a little bit missing there. That's kind of me on this, but I don't know if that's the same for you. But part of what happens when you create a capture is that you flattened out what was in that original thing anyway. Like you've kind of printed it and gone, well, that's that tone finished now. Whereas if it's in a preset, over the years, my presets, like even my Eric Lead preset, has kind of evolved. Like I use less gain on it now. There used to be a top secret overdrive that I would have on all the time. I actually have that off most of the time now. I don't have a gate on it anymore. So most of the time I'm on the snapshot 1 of that preset, if you're familiar. Whereas if I'm in capture space, essentially I'm more or less stuck with what I would have had. So my tone wouldn't have really evolved in the same way over the years unless I just create a new profile, a new capture. And it's less kind of modular in the tone part itself. Like, is it as easy or even relevant to go in there and think, well, what would it sound like if I used this different drive? So that's what I kind of still like about modeling. I also feel like, for me personally, like the tones that I get out of the modeling side of things generally will rival what I can get with a capture or a profile anyway. That might be different for different folks, but I think that's the case for me.
And the obvious advantage to this kind of thing is that if you've got a tone that you're already sort of happy with, whether that comes from a device like this or from an amp and microphone like I've done in the past, then this is obviously quite a convenient way to capture that and make it available at a later date.
Even in this case here, where it's like literally the A-B screen. There's less gain. So I'll save it. You know, does it get me that close?
also doing is adding another ADA conversion. Let me just make a couple of adjustments here, because I think there should be a bit more gain. So I get there's kind of a benefit to it where you're sort of flattening things out a little bit in some regards, right? Where it's like, well, actually, now that capture is a flatter thing which is made up of sort of one thing to tweak, whereas my actual modeler is actually, you know, a set of variables. If I plug in a different guitar, I'm probably going to get fairly different. So it's like a tighter, less fuzzy thing going on. It's just like a slightly less... useful though in some regards, right? So what I really did enjoy though, this Pro Reverb into the HX Stomp, and this is kind of, I guess, the thing for me. If it was all integrated into the same device, much like the Quad Cortex, I think there would be less barriers to me actually doing this. The Tonex barrier for me is that I don't really have time to go and create captures of these things, the Tonex models they call them, and when I have tried it, it's been kind of overly complicated and didn't really work with my rig very well. The barrier with the Nanocortex is less, but it doesn't integrate with my normal workflow quite the same, like Helix native. So if there were, for instance, you know, this Helix Proxy thing, would I use captures potentially? I think sometimes yes. So is it a big deal for me? It's not the major selling point. I think it's really just one of those things that everyone has been asking about so much that they can't really ignore it. For me, is it going to change the game? Again, I don't think necessarily totally. Having been in a space where I can choose between modeling and profiling or capture, for whatever reason, I always end up in the modeling side most of the time. Mostly. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Is this something you've been waiting for? And if so, what are your plans to do with it? Is it something you don't think matters too much for you in your workflow? And I'd love to know some of your thoughts on that stuff. So I'll catch you around and hope you're enjoying basking in this pre-Helix Stadium release sort of phase, which now we know about the Helix Stadium is quite a lot to kind of talk about and digest. Yeah, I think it's kind of cool to think about some of this stuff.